Given the amount of court cases that are being thrown around by the Trump administration as of late over voting fraud and, their general attempts to perform a coup and take over the nation in an illegal way and, invalidate and disenfranchise entire states, I thought it'd be a nice change of pace, maybe, to look at a different court case that Joe Biden just recently spoke about, specifically that of the attempt by the Trump administration to overturn the Affordable Care Act, also known as Obamacare. With that said, let's just take a look at what Biden has to say and try to figure out what's going on here and how we can deal with it.
Thank you, Kamala. Good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon, Joe.
As was stated, the United States Supreme Court heard oral arguments on the case of grave importance to the American people. This case represents the latest attempt by the far-right ideologues to do what they've been repeatedly failed to do for a long time. The courts and the Congress and the Court of Public Opinion over the last decade to eliminate the entirety of the Affordable Care Act. Twice already, the Supreme Court has upheld the landmark law in 2012 and again in 2015.
But we all know it's different now here in 2020, right? With Amy Barrett on the bench, right? With Amy Barrett there, I am actually kind of scared that this is going to go in the direction where the Republicans are going to get their way and the Affordable Care Act is going to be torn down.
And the Congress, expressing the popular will of the American people on a bipartisan basis, has rejected numerous attempts, numerous efforts by President Trump to erase the law as well.
Fair enough.
In the middle of a deadly pandemic that has infected more than 10 million Americans, nearly 1 in every 32 Americans, often with devastating consequences to their health. These ideologues are once again trying to strip health coverage away from the American people.
You know what I think? I think that during the next 4 years, this is going to be a major Republican strategy. They're going to try to throw Supreme Court case after Supreme Court case now that they pretty much have it stacked in an attempt to stop any legislation Biden gets through and to continue to strip away a lot of the rights of American citizens. They're going to keep doing that over and over and over again. And I don't know how many of them they'll win. Like, I don't know how many they'll get through to, especially, like, even with Barrett there, like, I don't know how many they'll get through, right? But I think if they make good, quote unquote, constitutionalist arguments that appeal to the original intent or whatever, that they're going to probably be able to at least convince Barrett and several of the other judges. And it's genuinely scary. And all of that's going to be done over the next 4 years to make Biden look like a fool, hopefully take more House and Senate seats over the next 2 years, and then win and send up their next neo-fascist in 4 years.
The goal of the outgoing administration is clear from the brief they filed in the Supreme Court. It asserts, and I quote, "The entire ACA thus must fall," end of quote. Now, I'm not naive about the fact that health care is an issue that has divided Americans in the past.
That actually is a question that I would have. If the Supreme Court were to put this down, and I don't know the answer to this, would they have to, like, set a date that it would end, like, or would people just lose their insurances right there? Would it be a situation where everybody just loses healthcare immediately, or do they give people time to maybe switch to a state plan, or maybe switch to, if they're fortunate enough to have a job in this society, their employer's insurance, or whatever alternatives they have to whatever the Affordable Care has been able to provide. And for people, like, I don't know. I don't know what people are gonna have to do to switch plans. Because I can't imagine what everybody in the country all at once trying to sign up for new health care is going to look like.
But the truth is, the American people are more united on this issue today than they are divided. Recently, as last month, a leading survey found that American people want to keep the Affordable Care Act in place by an overwhelming margin, of 58% to 36%. 79% of the American people, including 9 out of 10 Democrats, 8 out of 10 independents, and 2/3 of Republicans, want to keep the ACA protections for people with pre-existing conditions.
If that's true, that is an overwhelming majority of the population. And I also just want to remind everyone, COVID-19 is a pre-existing condition. If you don't have that clause in there, anyone who got the coronavirus is not going to have health care. They're going to be very easily denied any access to it.
Which would be eliminated if this lawsuit were to succeed. This doesn't need to be a partisan issue. It's a human issue. It affects every single American family. We can't subvert the growing consensus of the American people based on an argument put forward in the briefs seeking to invalidate the law that even many conservative legal scholars, including in the National Review, consider to be, quote, ridiculous. Let's be absolutely clear about what's at stake. The consequences of the Trump administration's argument are not academic or an abstraction. For many Americans, they are a matter of life and death in a literal sense.
No, see, that's the truth of the matter. Like, it's the fact that the Republican Party right now is more interested in winning, and I'm not saying the Democrats wouldn't do something similar if they were in a certain position, right? But like, this is human lives. And you know, maybe this is a hot take, maybe this is something scary, but maybe we shouldn't be putting such a value on human life for victory for the Republican Party. Maybe we should actually be putting human needs first. Maybe we should be putting people first, right? Instead of anything else. Like, I think humans are more important than anything else. We're in this place, right? Like, even capitalism needs its workers. Even I don't know. This just gets me angry.
This argument will determine whether health care coverage of more than 20 million Americans who acquired under the Affordable Care Act will be ripped away in the middle of the nation's worst pandemic in a century. Over 100 million people, as the Vice President-elect pointed out, over 100 million people with pre-existing conditions like asthma, diabetes, cancer, could once again be denied coverage. Whether complications from COVID-19 like lung scarring and heart damage will be the next flood of pre-existing conditions that can be used as an excuse to jack up premiums or deny coverage altogether. For millions of survivors who have struggled, won, and fought the coronavirus, fought against the loss of their life. This argument is going to determine whether women, as is pointed out, will once again be charged higher premiums just because they're women.
Yeah, pregnancy can be a pre-existing condition, by the way. That's actually a thing. Pregnancy can be a pre-existing condition and can get you denied health care. If you didn't have the ACA in or something better in play. Like the fact that we can't get our heads out of wherever the hell they are, because I don't know. And figure out that having basic healthcare is good for this country. It's good from a capitalist perspective because it keeps workers healthy and going. It's good from a social position. It's good from a humanitarian perspective because, hot take, humans deserve to have a right to live and to actually, get healthcare. And I can't even imagine what this is going to do in areas where, the only hospital available to you is going to be a public hospital during a pandemic. How many people are going to be denied healthcare as crowding in hospitals is already potentially going to get bad during spikes? How do you manage that? Like, why are the Republicans more interested in winning right now than human life? Why is human life able to be sacrificed on the altar of this Republican cult right now? This is what's bothering me. This is all that's going through my head when I'm hearing him talk. And yeah, I don't like the Democrats, but right now, the alternative is so much worse.
Or seniors will see their prescription drug costs go up.
Yep.
And like kids who, whether or not they can stay on their parents' plans till age 26.
Yeah, that's an important factor. That means the second you hit 18, you're going to lose your health care. If you're anyone between the 18 and 26, it's gone. Goodbye. Problem solved. Like, you're no longer on your parents' plan. Deal with it yourself. You know, that's probably been the only thing keeping a lot of people in that age bracket going. You know, one of the few things that they have is like, oh, I can stay on my parents' plan for a little while. I have a little bit of leeway. No, that's going to be gone if they win this case.
Where their annual lifetime benefits will be reimposed. So someone could walk in and say, die in peace, you run out of your coverage.
Oh, that just got me angry. That just got me angry. You know, we have the means to save you. We have all of this equipment here. We have all of the ability to do so. And we're going to choose not to because you can't afford to pay. Like, how backward is that? How backward is it that you're going to have nurses? It's going to be the nurses because the doctors probably won't do it themselves. You're going to have nurses primarily going into people's rooms and telling them, I'm really sorry. I know you're sick. I know you're literally dying on this bed right now, but you might have to leave the hospital because you don't have enough on your insurance left to pay for this treatment. We're not going to be able to give you your chemotherapy. We're not going to be able to perform the surgery that could save your life. As a matter of fact, I'm sure this is what the Republicans are thinking. It'd be better off if we could have all of the people who are going to receive organs on the donor list go straight to wealthy people rather than being on the way that they're handled now. Like, oh, you can't afford your organ transplant? Sorry, you don't get that heart surgery. Your liver's gone? Oh, well, too bad. Like, I don't know where the line is in that regard with medical insurance, but if he's not being hyperbolic here, that's what we're talking. We're talking about human life being sold in exchange for a Republican victory, and they don't care. They just don't.
This isn't hyperbole, it's real.
Thank you, Joe. I literally just asked that. Okay.
As real as it gets. When a family is faced with the awful news of a child's diagnosis with leukemia, or a mom forced to battle
There you go.
breast cancer, an accident that leaves loved ones unable to live the life they've always known,
You tell him, Joe.
it stops your heart. It stops your heart. It wrenches your entire world right off its axis when that happens. And many of you know that from your own personal experiences. Believe me, I know the feeling, and too many American families do as well. In that moment, the very last thing on your mind, the very last thing should be on your mind, is whether you can afford the treatment. The Affordable Care Act was created to put a stop to that inhumanity.
As many problems as the Affordable Care Act has, and I would love to see a single payer system. I would love to see all these things. He is not wrong when he says this. This just removing healthcare without some sort of better system in play, and I mean an actually better system, not the plan Trump's been promising for the past 4 years that clearly he has no plan for and doesn't really care about because he's too busy golfing and watching, Fox News. Yeah, I don't know. I really don't know what to say. Like, this is infuriating to the highest degree. And if anybody even remotely claims that this is an appeal to emotion, no, it's not. No, it's not. If you're coming into this with any sort of understanding that human life is valuable and human life is more valuable than finance and human life is, important, if you're the kind of person who would even remotely say that that's not the case, there's no way to actually argue this, right? But I think that there's good standing arguments for those positions already, and I'm coming at this from this position, and I think this is something worth getting angry about. I think this is worth getting emotional about too, to be honest. Yeah, I'm just gonna let him keep going, because I can't.
It was created to ensure that families thrust into their worst nightmare of their lives could focus not on money, but on the fight that really matters. Obamacare is a law that every American should be proud of. It's why people with pre-existing conditions are protected in this country. It's a law that delivered vital coverage, as I said before, for 20 million Americans who did not have coverage. It's a law that reduced prescription drug price costs for nearly 12 million seniors. It's a law that saved lives and spared countless families from financial ruin. So this effort to bypass the will of the American people, the verdict of the courts in the past, the judgments of Congress, in my view, is simply cruel and needlessly divisive. Regardless of the outcome,
I have to agree with that, you know? Not only, but I'd go even a step further than cruel. I think it's literally them being willing to sacrifice people for making Biden look bad and making this administration look bad. And so they can win in 4 years. That's what they're worried about. That's literally what they're worried about. And again, Obamacare, Affordable Care Act, whichever you want to call it, it's not enough. It's really not enough. But it is a buffer right now. And if anybody took the position that Biden was the lesser of two evils in this particular election, the Affordable Care Act is the way lesser evil than having no plan for health care right now.
of this case, I promise you this. Beginning on January 20th, the Vice President-elect Harris and I, we're going to do everything in our power to ease the burden of health care on you and your families. I promise you that. As I said, I will protect your health care like as my own family. And we've been, unfortunately, significant consumers of health care. That starts by building on the Affordable Care Act, with the dramatic expansion of health care coverage and bold steps to lower health care costs. My transition team will soon be starting its work to flesh out the details so that we can hit the ground running, tackling costs, increasing access, lowering the price of prescription drugs. Families are reeling right now, particularly the reporters in this room and others listening. You've interviewed a lot of these people around the country as you've gone all over the world, all over the country. Enduring illnesses, faced with risky choices, losing their employer plans in droves. Already 10 million have already lost their employer plans.
Yep.
They need a lifeline, and they need it now. They should have to hold their breath. They shouldn't be in that position, waiting to see if the Supreme Court is going to wrench away the peace of mind.
Look, what does that say right now? That there's currently a situation where 9 people in this country get to vote and make a decision that are not elected by the people, that have no accountability to the people, that 9 people are now going to get the right to determine whether or not people have health care. There is something fundamentally flawed with the current Supreme Court. There is something extremely flawed with the Supreme Court. I'm not saying that, like, we shouldn't have our courts run by people who maybe have some sort of legal background or expertise. I'm not even going to come out and say that. But we have to have a better system. We have to have something more democratic with the Supreme Court, because this is not working. There's just too much at stake at this point. Because after this, I'm sure it's going to be Roe v. Wade. This is just a test balloon. They're coming for everything, I'm sure. And I'm sorry that I'm being such a doomer here, but, like, I don't know what the defense is to a Supreme Court that's going to be this hostile. He's going to have to play the executive orders really hard. He's going to have to keep coming at it with executive orders and hope that with the Senate, that they get the Senate in January from Georgia. Because otherwise, we're going to be sitting on this.
They've come to now rely on. So we're going to get right to work, I promise you, addressing the issues that families are talking about around their kitchen tables this morning, making sure that they can get in bed tonight with the peace of mind that they deserve, and fulfilling our moral obligation to ensure that here in America, healthcare is a right for all, not a privilege for a few. So come January, we're going to work quickly with the Congress to dramatically ramp up healthcare protections, get Americans universal coverage, lower healthcare costs.
Did he just say universal healthcare? Did I hear that correctly? Hold on.
of healthcare protections. Get Americans universal coverage.
Universal coverage. I wonder what that actually means. That's a big one.
Lower healthcare costs as soon as humanly possible. That's the promise I make to you. We're going to fight for your family's health coverage the same way we fight for our own family's health coverage. We want every single American to know if you're sick, if you're struggling, if you're worried about how you're going to get going to get through the day, we will not abandon you. That is a promise. We'll not leave you to face these challenges alone. We're going to get through this. We're going to get through it together. And we're going to build a healthcare system that puts you and your families first and that every American can be proud of. I want to thank you all for listening. May God bless you. May God keep you safe in this COVID environment. And may God protect our troops. Now I'm told that we're going to have, we're going to take 5 questions or thereabout.
I'm going to skip the questions. Y'all heard him, right? Universal coverage. I don't know if that actually means universal health care, but if it does, and if that's what he's actually saying, we need to hold him accountable to that. We need to push from the left on that one as well. Make sure that happens. Make sure he actually pushes for that. Because we need to keep pushing as hard from the left as the right seems to be pushing. And they have the institutions of power right now, and it's scary, but the presidency is seemingly, at the very least, doing what it can. That was actually a really good speech for Biden. I think it really would hit a lot of people's hearts if people's hearts were not just... A lot of people's hearts were just not so focused on Trump and the bipartisanship. That was actually a pretty decent speech. Didn't think he had that in him. There wasn't a lot to contend with Biden in this particular thing. Again, I'm not the biggest Biden person on the planet. Like, I don't particularly care for the Democrats, but right now, they're the buffer between most people's livelihoods, the way of life of a lot of human beings to be safe and secure, and what the Republican dream seems to be right now. And with that said, my name is Anarchist Tara, and I hope you enjoyed watching.